Hello, everyone. So for the remainder of this month, Venus is growing in prominence. Let's take a look at the transits here to show you this. Right now, Venus is soon to join Saturn in Pisces, and then we'll move towards Neptune, and then share in a conjunction with the North Node. This is all happening up until February 1st. So anytime a planet joins with a North Node, that particular planet becomes a lead point in our collective evolution. So you can think of it as we're all really wanting to learn the teachings that come with that particular planet. So over the next couple of weeks, we have Venus moving to Saturn, to Neptune, and in this balsamic phase with the North Node, it's completing a cycle. So this brings with it a lot of reviews, a lot of greater universal and timeless reflections. Really, this is a time to learn and really understand the higher teachings of Venus and Pisces. So let's drop into it. Before I do so, a couple announcements. As always, my Planet Square the Node series is ongoing. You can jump into the entire series or drop into any individual class. I will often write articles in tandem to these video teachings. So if you want to receive these articles in your inbox, along with my recent videos and work updates, you can subscribe for that. I'm available to offer evolutionary astrology readings for individuals, couples, and long-term soul-to-soul companionship sessions. So you can check all of that out in the description below. My 2025 first-year training program is soon to open enrollment. If you are itching to get started with the curriculum, you can enroll in the self-study program now and then upgrade to the live program when that time comes. All right, so let's jump into this. I'm going to be reading and riffing off of the article that I most recently wrote on this topic. So in its essence, Venus in transit always will correspond to where we are cultivating harmony, balance, and beauty within and without in our lives. When Venus is prominent in transit, the Venusian themes of pleasure, beauty, the things we value, the agreement and exchange of value within our relationships all emerge as a central theme. One of the issues with Venus in general, however, is a more gross level consciousness of holding on to what feels good and avoiding what doesn't. This is because Venus is also about survival. Both the survival of the species and also how we each establish our basic means for living and sustaining our lives. Who really wants to be uncomfortable? On a more existential level, the core of Venus being uncomfortable, this can feel psychologically like we're not surviving. So there's a very gross level of movement to avoid discomfort because that says, well, my body isn't feeling good. I don't feel good about this moment, so I must not be surviving, which is antithetical to the nature of Venus. Of course, on a deeper level of embodiment, being physically or emotionally uncomfortable is okay and safe. On a deeper level, Venus is really more about our capacity to feel, to be open to our experience without necessarily avoiding the more complex and uncomfortable sensations. Often this is very important because without the capacity to find some repose and peace in the midst of discomfort, we will never give ourselves the chance to cultivate more strength and resilience in life. In other words, we will never put forth more effort to establish our values and desires. And this is the shadow of Venus. It's becoming overly dependent on the outer world, the people and the things of our life to determine our value and sense of well-being. We want life to make us feel a certain way, but we won't necessarily put forth the effort to generate the feelings that we want to generate in life. So the awakened expression here is to know oneself deeply and to determine for our own selves how we wish to feel, and thus what actions, what communication, what choices or adjustments are needed in our life in order to cultivate the feelings that we wish to generate. As always, the metaphor of tending a garden is always useful when contemplating Venus. Personal effort is simply necessary. So with this basic introduction established, let's understand this archetype when we place Venus in Pisces conjunct Saturn. Pisces and its ruler Neptune can be thought of as a natural higher octave of Venus. While Venus is about our human and physical relationships, Neptune and Pisces are about our relationship with absolute meaning. When you place Venus in Pisces, the intent is to infuse our more lateral social and physical relationships with higher meaning and purpose. On the one hand, this means that Venus in Pisces is learning that no relationship and no thing is valuable for its own sake, other than how it makes the love that we are more accessible and livable and breathable. Otherwise, a challenge with Venus in Pisces is in giving ultimate meaning to the things that we project as being ultimately meaningful. The way a person makes us feel, our expectations, often unfounded, of what they are or what they will give to us, our idealizations of a relationship, our idealizations of what our life is about and how we expect things will work out or how we will feel. Right? So all of these idealizations, hopes, and expectations kind of take our own personal efforts out of the picture, and we just sort of naively assume, and this is the issue with Pisces, that things are just going to work out. And we can trust life, we can trust others, they're going to be good to us, they'll make us feel good, all of those things. So all of this can be a subtle way of bypassing how our relationships actually are and how we actually feel about our lives right now. Venus in Pisces can sort of put its head in the sand in refusing to accept things as they actually are. So on the one hand, this initial conjunction with Saturn is a reality check. And I like to say that Saturn isn't reality, but it's a reality check. It says, here's the structural reality of your life as it is now, the conditions that have come to manifest, not the ones you want to be or that you hope will be, but the ones that are. Whatever our hopes, wishes, and dreams are, Saturn says that our life is the way it is right now. If you want it to look differently, Saturn also says that this is possible, but we need to work for it. In essence, Saturn in Pisces says we have to work to make manifest our dreams. We have to put into practice the values and virtues that we want to experience and share in our lives. In other words, heaven or other people won't necessarily and magically show up and save us and make everything the way we want it to be. We have to do the work, and that is our responsibility. Only then can we become a conduit for grace, which is out of our hands. So Saturn in Pisces really highlights that relationship between self-responsibility and spiritual effort, but also the surrender of we can't control the movement of grace through us and through our lives. That's where we become co-creators with the divine. Now, at this point, I want to highlight a very important distinction that I think is often confused on the spiritual path. And this is essential when you think about Venus in a new phase with Saturn. This is the difference between hard work and strife. Hard work is absolutely necessary. Saturn requires it. Any goal worth reaching, be it an inner state of mind or a material manifestation, means we have to work at it to get it. Working hard simply means generating more and more internal congruency in our thoughts, choices, and behaviors with respect to what we want our life to look like, right? Working hard is bringing congruency in our thoughts, actions, and behaviors with respect to where we're trying to go with our lives. Strife, on the other hand, is not necessarily useful. Strife carries with it the connotation of suffering and woe is unto me hardship. So it's helpful to really know the difference between hard work and strife, because these two do very often get confused when it comes to all things Pisces, in particular Saturn. Okay, so now we have Saturn and Venus coming together, and there's this portal where Venus is moving between Saturn and Neptune for about 2 solid weeks. Moving from Saturn towards Neptune further emphasizes that this is a time of healing and forgiveness. Again, for many souls, there may be some level of disappointment in the sense that the fireworks aren't going on in the way we thought that they would. And yet this disappointment is a potential realignment. In other words, an alignment with reality, to begin to look for where true meaning actually comes from. The higher calling of this transit between Saturn and Neptune is to ask ourselves what truly makes our life worth living. What is all of this for? Like, Neptune can really emphasize the emptiness, the meaninglessness, and all the things that we have, especially when you put Saturn there and Venus. A dream that we want to come true and the idealization that we've placed on our life and our relationships, it comes back down to, but where does real happiness actually come from? What is the way in which love, grace, and beauty and higher meaning wants to move through us in our lives? So some useful pointers or reflection to contemplate. Am I doing the things in my life that reconnect me with deeper inspiration? Or am I just going through the motions? Again, Venus is our embodiment. It's the things we value, and it's also the way that we give value to our personal life, right? So time you take to take a bath or take a walk in nature or spend time with art, all of those things are little gestures, but they're incredibly important in the way that we're affirming and demonstrating what's valuable to us. Another point of reflection is, what is a way I can intentionally bring more joy and beauty into my life? Again, something we're intentionally tending, not waiting or expecting or hope will happen at some point in the future. If I am not looking for external people or conditions to change for me, what can I do to take responsibility for my own divine connection? So again, sometimes the answers aren't big deal, big life changes that we need to implement. They're just little actions, little choices that we can remember and grant ourselves permission to do more frequently, perhaps on a daily basis. And Venus is art, Venus is grace, Venus is beauty. And we all have our own natural way of connecting with this grace and this beauty in our own lives. We don't have to be an artist. We don't have to, make pottery. There's just a natural way of expressing, I am here and I'm choosing to bring peace and relaxation into my life more often than not. I find, especially being a very busy person with a lot of responsibility, that the choice and the practice to bring some peace and beauty into my life is something I need to remember. Because it's so easy, especially when Saturn's involved, to kind of just get stuck in the rut of the thing you do and the timeline and the disciplines and the practices and the responsibilities, rather, all the things you need to meet in life. Sometimes just 5 minutes of replenishment is enough to reconnect us with what's really and truly valuable. So here's another point to contemplate: letting go of the valueless. And I've been loving this part. A useful reflection that comes with these transits is the re-evaluation of all the things we have otherwise valued, but that are in fact valueless. I'm just loving this learning because we give value to so many things. And I find that it actually takes sometimes periods of high stress, right? Where there isn't necessarily a lot of time. We might find ourselves involved in just a lot of high stress activity, where it becomes ever more important that we just let go of all the things that are kind of taking up unnecessary space. But it's easy to make those things that are taking up unnecessary space to be valuable because we've told ourselves that these things are valuable. It might take a long time to realize that they're just empty sentiments of something that we used to think or want or think that we need. Each time I go through a decluttering process, I never regret it. In fact, it's the things I hold on to on the premise that someday I'll use them that end up subtly taking away life force. So, recently I grabbed for a shirt, and then I realized it's this one shirt that I own that's too small, it doesn't fit me, hasn't fit me in 18 years. But it was only just now that I realized I don't actually have to hold on to it. But I've held on to it for so long because I valued a thought that said, this is a shirt that I want. This shirt has value. I want it. I want to keep it. But I never allowed myself to actually arrive at the felt experience of what it's like to hold on to something that I literally never use. Just the thought, it's valuable. So I'm really amazed at moments like that, and I think this is a great time because when we simplify, we create a lot of space for what's really important, and we have to want what's really important. We have to want to feel more value, more richness, more meaning in our life deeply in order to kind of have the clarity of mind to see what's actually valueless. So much of the sentiment and what we think is meaningful is actually just taking up a whole lot of space. I learned this on a cyclic level, okay? So we can understand that these themes are being ever more emphasized and important with Venus moving to join the North Node. So the remainder of this month places a great emphasis on our realignment with the more spiritual and meaningful values and ways of living here. This is a great time to reconnect with what truly makes our life worth living and to make the most of it. may we understand that this life is precious and not to be wasted. And again, I find for myself that the truth of this preciousness often only emerges when we might feel very disconnected from feeling more value in our life, when we feel bombarded by a lot of things we don't need, a lot of activities that we don't enjoy, a lot of stuff that we actually don't use. It only sometimes takes just being so immersed in the valueless for us to realize, am I really happy? Is this what I really want? Then when we prioritize more and more our happiness, it's just easier to let go of what really doesn't matter. But we can't really see that it doesn't matter until we really, really care about how we feel. And I think that's such an important teaching here for all of us. All right, as always, thank you so much for watching.